migration is still double the government's targets, correct? Still 260 odd thousand. Overall net migration to the UK from March 2016 to March 2017, 246,000. That compares to 327 for the year before and an 81,000 drop. So should we be celebrating, or is this just a sticking plaster on the severed jugular of border control? Joining me now is the UKIP MEP for London, Gerard Batten. Hello, Gerard.
Hello. Good afternoon, Johnny.
Good afternoon. Have you got your dancing shoes on? Shall we go out celebrating tonight, me and you? What do you think? Huh?
Well, I was watching the news today as well. I mean, and the BBC have spun it, migration down. Put it into perspective, that's 1 million people every 4 years. City the size of Birmingham that we've got to build in order to accommodate them. And, of course, that's not the real figure. If you actually look at the national insurance cards issued to non-UK people, to foreign nationals, last year it was about 825,000, something like that. And the gross figure for migration was 600 and something thousand. Now, even taking account of the fact that people might come, get a national insurance number and leave soon afterwards, there's obviously still an enormous disparity about the real figures and what we're actually being told by the Office for National Statistics. It's much bigger than we actually see. Yeah, and it's unsustainable.
And of course, it is unsustainable. And these figures are only the official migrants who have come. Yeah. It doesn't actually include all those illegals who are getting into the country.
Yeah.
And the BBC span it, and then the second spin, I don't know if you've seen it in the last hour or so, is now, the CBI and businesses are saying, that's because the Europeans aren't coming because of the threat of Brexit and the EU, blah, blah, blah. And therefore, we're losing this skilled workforce, the car washers, the baristas, and the sandwich makers. I mean, can't we use some of our own people to do those jobs, Gerard?
Exactly, and they are people who, although they're low paid and low skilled, they're actually doing a job. We're also bringing in anybody that wants to come. So when you go onto Westminster Bridge and you see the beggars and the piano accordion players and the free card tricksters, and the beggars you get in Romford, where my office is, and places like that, they can just come in because they feel like it. But there was a thing on the news last night about a highly qualified Chinese lady who's married to an Englishman, can't have her visa renewed, she's going to be expelled. So we're kicking people like that out because it's easy to do, but let any Tom, Dick or Harry who feels like turn up because they're European citizens. But there's another facet to this as well, which is that that figure of 246,000, over 50% of those are not EU citizens. So why can't we control immigration from outside of the EU? Anybody seems to be able to turn up if they feel like it, even if they're outside of the EU. And I know from people who work in the airports, because they tell me, in confidence, the actual fact it's in chaos. That somebody said to me that they're working on a desk, checking people coming into the country. If they check their papers and a queue builds up, they get British Airways screaming down the phone to the border agency to stop it so they can let these people through. And they told me also that they know that they are letting in people who've previously been deported from the UK. It's too difficult to deal with, so they just have to let it go with the flow.
Mikhail says on Twitter, Gerard, we might not be in Schengen, but we've got an open door and over 1 million illegals in London alone. Deportation should be immediate. EU cheap labour, no tie. Obviously very angry. Whilst we're on this subject, of course, we've had this attack in Barcelona, and I've been telling my listeners today about the mayor of Venice. I don't know if you've heard about this. He's basically said anybody who shouts Allah Akbar, the police should shoot them dead. Compare and contrast that with our own mayor, Sadiq Khan. What would you like to say?
Well, I mean, he's told us that it's part and parcel of living in a big city. Something we have to learn to live with, being blown up on the way to work or whatever. I think that I'm not quite sure how practical it is to you've got to have a lot of snipers hanging around waiting for somebody to shout something and hope you get it right. They weren't shouting something else. I think it's more a case of we've now got. Certainly we should be dealing with it, but the only way you're going to deal with it is to turn off the tap and stop more of them coming and try to deal with the problem that you've already got. And they're not bothered about being shot because they're going to go to heaven and get 72 virgins. So I mean, I'd oblige them, certainly, help them out in that respect. But we've really got to, you look at all these boats of migrants coming over in the Mediterranean, they're not women and children, they are young, fit men. These are not refugees, these are migrants.
Fighting age.
Yeah, and they are the vanguard. Once they get in and get established, then they bring their families over. It's a never-ending supply, and of course we don't know who we're bringing in. We're so now, we're talking about 250,000 people every year. Can you remember when Mrs. Thatcher was Prime Minister and it was about 30-odd thousand a year, and she said we were being swamped? We were being swamped in her view when we had 30-odd thousand, and now we've got 250,000 every year, non-stop, relentless. And can I say, I think this is a deliberate policy, Johnny. We're seeing these crazy things happen in America now at the moment, but I believe that there's a deliberate policy here to replace the English in their own country. And it's in order to destroy national loyalty, to destroy national identity, so they could create this great socialist European state. And it's being done deliberately.
There's an awful lot of people who agree with you, Gerard. Thank you very much indeed. Gerard Batten, UKIP MEP for London.
You didn't frankly have the balls to put country before party.